So the topic assigned to me was Mel Gibson's movie Apocalypto, which was released in 2006. It starts off with a quote from Will Durant, who is a historian, who says, "A great civilization is not conquered from without until it has been destroyed itself from within." So a quick summary of the movie. It follows the protagonist named Jaguar Paw, and it follows his village's destruction, his capture, along with the rest of his tribe. And they're taken and beaten and forced to go on this very grueling journey to their captor's city, where the women were sold and the men were painted blue, and they were forced on top of this temple where they were sacrificed to the sun gods. Now, it was Jaguar's Paw, his turn to be sacrificed, but when he got up on the stone, a solar eclipse happened, and they took that as a sign that the sun gods were satisfied, so they spared him his life. So they told him, but what they wound up doing was they took the rest of the survivors to the back to kill them, but they sort of made a sport of it, and Jaguar Paw escaped. This scene kind of reminded me of Home Alone, because he ran back to his forest, and since he knew the environment so well, he was able to set booby traps and pick off each of his captors one by one until the very end. Now, I'm going to say there is a spoiler alert, because I'm going to tell you how the movie ends. So he's down to the last two captors, and they follow him out to the beach, and you just stop, and then they pan out to the ocean, and these ships are arriving onto shore, and there's these little boats, and it looks like the Spanish are coming. They've got their crosses, and that's how the movie ends. So there were some aspects of this class that the movie kind of reminded me of, and one was a folk story. There was a scene about this elderly man who had the whole tribe sitting around him as he told them an oral story. It reminded me back of, in our first chapter, the origin of folk stories, because they're just so important to the Native Americans to preserve their history and traditions, and I believe also to impart wisdom. There's also a scene in the folk story, in the story that the old man was telling the tribe, involved a man who was seeking wisdom and strength from the animals, and animals seems to be a key point, because they're so well respected. And there was a scene in the movie where they actually had to kill a jaguar, and they were so upset about it. They kept saying how it was such a bad omen, and it was. Another part that reminded me of the class was the ships that had arrived, where the Native Americans were being invaded, I guess is a word to use, and they were bringing diseases and Christianity and so forth, and it just sort of reminded me of the stories we had read from John Smith. There were a lot of controversies surrounding the movie. One in particular that stuck out to me was a Q&A from Mel Gibson, where he tried to draw parallels between the decline of Mayan civilization and the then current situation of the United States, which he was pretty much insinuating that sending soldiers off to Iraq was equivalent to human sacrifice. Mel Gibson also said to not take his movie as historical document. Another controversy was that he painted them very savage. This is a very gory movie, and pretty much as bloodthirsty people. And a lot of people had problems with that because it was showing a lot of stereotypes. Now, the Mayans did practice warfare and they treated their prisoners harshly, but I don't believe that they were as crazed as maybe this movie painted them to be. So, in conclusion, it was a very interesting movie, but I think more should be taken for entertainment purposes, although it did draw on a lot of similarities from what we read in class, which was, the importance of folk stories, the invasions of the English or the Spaniards overtaking their city. And that's it. I think that is it. Is there any questions?